keep doing it. I don't know why it dropped. Give me 1 second. All right, we are back.
All right, I'm going to repeat this slide because of there apparently was a technical transmission problem. So what this slide is talking about is the sort of life cycle of a piece of information that the user types into your custom property editor. So in the first part of this example, the users in the custom property editor for that send rich email, and they type the value Brightbank customer support for the sender display name. That's what they're going to want when this flow runs, and that could be in 5 minutes, it could be in 5 years. When this flow runs, they're going to want that string passed into the action, and specifically, they want it passed into this sender display name variable that's on the surface of that underlying component. So you, as the CPE, have captured this string. You now need to dispatch it to Flow via an event in sort of standard Lightning Web Component fashion. Flow will save that with the Flow metadata. Now, if the user comes back the next day, relogs into Salesforce, goes back to this flow in Flow Builder, and clicks on that property editor again, they're going to be expecting to see Brightbank customer support still in this combo box. Now, but you have just been instantiated as a stateless Lightning Web component, so you need to find out about that context, and that's where this input variables attribute comes in. Flow Builder will pass down to you this data structure that you see here on the right, with all of the information. This is essentially a list of everything the user has previously provided. You can then parse it and populate your UI, and just keep going as long as the user keeps making changes. All right, so a couple guidelines. Although this attribute is called input variables, don't get it confused with the variables section of the flow metadata. These variables represent explicit manual variables created in Flow in the resource manager. And they're different from the inputs that the user is providing. There's a third attribute that you get information from via the CP interface called element info, and that simply tells you a little about the underlying element itself. And this came up as a use case reflecting the fact that there might be several instances of a particular action or screen component in one flow. And you, as the CPE that's getting instantiated, need to know in some cases which one actually is currently selected. So this tells you that by providing the unique API name. All right, I mentioned this concept of dispatching information via an event. This is the standard pattern that you see here. Most of this is pretty standard stuff for Lightning Web Components. It's not Flow specific and it's not CPE specific. The most specific thing is this string right here. This is the event that Flow Builder knows to look for. So this is what Flow Builder is listening for. So you need to make sure that this is the specific event that you're firing. And then down here in the detail, this is the data structure that you are essentially going to specify. Here's an example of those data structures. Essentially, the first value is the name of the attribute. So that's, going back here, the name of the attribute here is sender display name. So you have to tell Flow Builder which attribute is this piece of change affecting. The second piece of information is the value, and the third is the type. And you can pass either a literal, in the case we just looked at, where the user typed in Brightbank customer support, that's just a literal string. But you can also, in some cases, you want to pass a reference and make sure that Flow knows that this is actually a merge field. We'll talk about that when we get to combo boxes and mapping inputs a little later. So if you want to pass a merge field, use the merge field syntax inside the string here, include the braces and the exclamation point. Set bubbles and composed to true. And that is just something that's important for this particular implementation. We mention it in part because there's some general guidance. If you go to events best practices, it recommends something different for general use cases. For this specific use case, you want to set bubbles and composed to true. And the final thing is, in some cases, what happens if the user actually turns off an attribute? They want null. They don't want to pass anything. There's a difference between the user wanting to pass an empty string and not wanting to pass anything or pass null. And if you're familiar with property editors, one of the reasons for these include toggles is to allow the user to specify, do they want to pass an empty value or do they want to pass null? So if you're in your custom property editor, if you're in a situation where you really want to null something out that previously you told the flow builder had a value, then instead of setting the custom event to configuration editor input value changed, set it to configuration editor input value deleted. All right, validation. So validation is very useful. Validation means that when the user hits the OK button on this property editor, or somehow some other way tries to unload it and go on to something else, you get a chance to say, wait a second, your data is not in a good state. To do that, add to your JavaScript, your CP JavaScript, a validate method just like this, and expose it with the @API. And now you essentially will return a value here that is an array. If you return an empty array, Flow is going to conclude that your CPE data is in good state and it's okay to proceed. If you return anything else, then Flow will not proceed. It will say there are errors. Now, an important distinction is normally when this happens, Flow Builder is responsible for showing the errors. Sometimes Flow Builder will show it in a standard property editor. Sometimes the errors appear in the top header in the general little error window. When you're building a CPE, the responsibility is yours for explaining and listing those errors. So, for example, if you have a required field in your CPE, the user doesn't fill a value in, and they hit the OK button, your validate code catches that. So far, so good. You can pass a non-empty list to Flow so it knows not to proceed with closing that property editor, but you need to actually somewhere in your HTML say something like in red, this is a required field. So keep in mind that that responsibility is yours. It's pretty easy to do, and there's an example in the documentation. All right, so let's talk about some of the tools and libraries that make it easier to build CPEs, because we don't want these to be a burden. We want these to be something where you can take an existing CPE source code, clone it, make a few changes, and you're done. So these links are useful links. Actually, this is not going to be very helpful to you watching this as videos.
I can actually post them in the chat right now.
Okay, great. So essentially, this is the official beta documentation, and we can just take a quick look at that. So this section right here, develop custom property editors for Flow Builder. This has got pretty much all the stuff I just explained is all talked about in here. And then very useful for getting a quick start. These are 4 of the first CPEs that have been built available in source code format. So quick choice that I mentioned, you can go look. If these are blog posts, they will have a link that takes you to GitHub source. So you can see them. You also can get them in the form of unmanaged projects. Install the whole thing into an org. So you've got a lot of stuff here that you can work from as a start. Now, one of the things you're going to see in those is the use of a library called flow-based components. Flow-based components is a brand new concept, basically. We took some of the components that we think are going to be the most useful in creating CPEs, the ones that we've already seen get used over and over again in different CPEs. We've put them in one library, and what we're advising is that you use this library and just list it in your installation instructions as a prerequisite. So if you go to, for example, the dual list box or quick choice blog post here, you'll see that the installation instructions say, hey, first, make sure that you install flow-based components, and then install the lightweight dual list box CPE. So we are basically starting to try and use some intelligence there. What that means is it will be easier. There will be fewer upgrade collisions as versions change. We're going to watch flow-based components very carefully and make sure that we don't break compatibility with it. This is all unofficial, however. I want to emphasize that this source code, this is community source code. It's just some of it's been built by members of the community. It's great stuff, but this is not part of the official product. These are just resources that you may find useful as you sort of learn and consider how to build these things. The same with flow-based components, and for that matter, this website that these are all hosted on, unofficialsf.com, not an official Salesforce resource. All right, so let's talk about what these base components are briefly. The most important component for CPEs, without question, is something called Flow Combobox. And the reason this is important is that one of the things you will have seen over and over again in the examples I've just given you, it's so ubiquitous that it fades into the background, is the concept that almost every CPE involves some mapping of upstream merge fields into an input. That's one of the great powers of flow. You can take the output from something that happened earlier in the flow and pass it in to your action or your screen component. And flow builder and the standard property editors do this with a combo box that you see that looks very similar to this. And it does type checking so that it won't let you accidentally map a string to an array and get into troubles. It will show you all of the values. So that's, that's very powerful. So we didn't want you as a CPE developer to have to rebuild that from scratch. So we created a single version called Flow Combobox. We put it in base components, and we recommend that you just use that. So if we go, for example, and take a look at this quick choice example, let's go over here to the HTML. So you can see here that there is a call right here to the flow-based components version of Flow Combobox. It's still in the C namespace, but it's basically relying on the presence of this flow-based components combo box. And as a result, the developer of this particular CPE saved a ton of work. And they get, if we go, let's go take a look. You can see, let's go back here. So right here, we have this combo box, and you can see that it's doing all the right things. It's got the right formatting. It's showing me the variables that are available in this flow. It's providing them as a pill. So all this functionality will come for free if you use Flow Combobox. And as a quick side note, easy thing to just discard, but when you are packaging, your flow, your project, and you want to install it, and you're using a dependent library like flow-based components, you need to add this dependency section. It's new-ish, and there's not a ton written about it yet, but it's powerful, and it's all because it enables at packaging time. It enables you to package your component without adding in flow-based components. You don't want to add flow-based components into your package. You simply want to require it as a dependency. Before now, that would have been pretty much impossible. You had to take everything you needed and stick it all into your package. But now, if you add this dependency section, you simply need to provide the package ID of a specific flow-based components version, and that's available at the flow-based components blog post page. Um, uh, and you can also see valid versions in all of these existing pieces of source code. So you want to add that in as well. What that does, all that does is when you're running packaging and it does the checks to see, it does all that referential integrity checking, it will go and say, oh, I'm going to include flow-based components in my checking. It's not going to add flow-based components to the package. It's just going to use it for validation. It's going to say, you're telling me that that's going to be present, so I am going to allow callouts to those classes to be packaged, even though I'm not packaging flow-based components itself here. So super, super powerful in terms of letting libraries be more effectively managed. All right, let's keep going. So we talked about Flow Combobox. And all of these base components, by the way, are open source, and we're really, as a community, really welcoming contributions. So if you see something that can be improved about this, make the change. And if you think other people might benefit from it, give us a pull request. And that would just be really awesome. We're already benefiting from pull requests from people that are consuming these base components. Another thing that you get as a base component in the FBC library is a formula builder. This is kind of a big deal. I am not aware of any other place in the whole Lightning component ecosystem where you can drop in an entire formula builder that just works. And it provides all of this UX inside your custom property editor. What it's going to output is it's going to output a formula string. So it's going to output a simple string. And so what you generally need to do is pair this with an action that uses the formula evaluator that ships with this formula builder. The formula evaluator, that's an Apex class. So at runtime, you can have a flow or you can have a class that passes a formula string into the evaluate formula action, and it will evaluate that formula. And it's got some support for global variables and a lot of powerful capability there. Now, very similar in concept to Formula Builder, and probably even more broadly applicable, is the Expression Builder. So this is a full-featured expression builder that you can drop into your custom property editor. Until you need one of these, you don't appreciate just how much of a pain it can be to have to build expression building from scratch. And so we didn't want people to have to do that over and over again. So we've got a great expression builder here that you can drop in. Now this also outputs a formula string. So the expression is turned into a string that can be evaluated and returns true or false at runtime. So very effective. And frankly, this expression builder and the formula builder have a lot of uses that have nothing to do with flow at all. So if you're just generally doing Lightning Web development, you might find it useful to be able to drop in a complete portable expression builder like this. Um, Object and field picker is a component we found ourselves using multiple times, so we made it a base component like this. This is a simple sort of dependent pickless pair, and you simply get a chance to pick an object. It will automatically fetch the objects that are available to this user, this running user, their permissions in this org. It will show those objects. You can optionally add a field picker that's based on the object that was selected. And it will spit out the selected object and field name. So you don't have to figure all of that out yourselves. We recently added a very powerful base component called transfer metadata. This is a sort of on the more advanced side, but what this lets you do is inside your CPE, while the user is configuring things, they you can actually carry out metadata retrieval. So for example, why might this be useful? Well, suppose you've got a component that does something with layouts, and what you want to do on instantiation of your CPE is you want to retrieve all of the org's current layout metadata. Then you want to parse it out the names perhaps of the layouts and put them in a pick list and let the user of your CPE pick the layout that they want to select. So that can be done via depending on there may be easier ways on depending on your use case. You might just want to use the tooling API or something, but if you need the actual layout metadata, you can actually retrieve it, and you can also carry out deployments as well. Okay, roadmap. This is pretty complete technology. There are a few things that we're still doing fit and finish polish on. We're going to GA this in the, it will be fully GA in the spring release. And we are also, there's one gap we're working to fill right now, which is that the variable information that's passed down from Flow Builder only includes manual variables. It doesn't yet include automatic outputs. So we're going to fix that so you can get the full list of variables and you don't have to do any introspection to find out automatic outputs. Places where you can talk to people and learn more. The main resource I would start with is the Salesforce Automation Trailblazer Community, 8,000 Flowhonites strong. There is also a Slack channel that is being used for developer conversations about Flow. So if you are doing active development of Flow components and want access to that, post a comment form on the unofficial sf.com website. This first resource is official, and the developer Slack channel, that's unofficial. It's not an official Salesforce resource. And that's basically the introduction. So hopefully we have some time for questions if there are any, and hopefully you'll find some very powerful ways to help this make your extensions more effective and more usable.
Yeah, totally. So it looks like we currently just have one question, which I know you've answered in the last few slides, but I figure we might as well ask it again just so that we're super clear. This is currently in beta, so how can I get hands-on and start testing out and playing with this?
Just go to the beta documentation essentially to get the actual docs. You don't need to enable anything because it's in beta. And then to sort of start to play with it, I would first look at these blog posts right here, which go into considerable detail about the underlying components and have information on the CPEs. And then just build one, clone one of these from source, and build one yourself.
Perfect. Well, that is the only question I have seen all session long. I know we've had quite a few people with us here, so lots of people were excited about it, but no more questions.
All right. Well, good talking to you. And are we going to be able to post this video presentation?
Yep, so the whole recording will be available here on Trailhead Live probably early next week.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. And I hope your flows run well. Take care.
Thanks, team.